The shadows dance on Sarah's walls as her daughter's voice breaks through the midnight silence. "Look, Mama, I made him better." Sarah's heart stops as she sees her son Ben suspended in the air, his small body twisting unnaturally as dark veins pulse beneath his translucent skin. Her daughter Kara stands below, clutching the glowing toy, tears of blood streaming down her face, her fingers now elongated into glass-like claws that scrape against the floor. "I just wanted him to never be hungry again, Mama." But this nightmare didn't begin with screams. It began with a simple gift from their wealthy new neighbor, a toy that promised to make all their dreams come true. They say a mother's love has no limits, but how far would you go when the price of your children's happiness is their soul? In a small bustling village at the edge of a thick whispering forest lived Sarah, a single mother whose days were a ceaseless grind. With calloused hands and a heart heavy with worry, she worked tirelessly to provide for her two children, Kara, aged 12, and Ben, a spirited 8-year-old. Life was hard, but they had each other, and Sarah reminded them daily to be grateful for the little they had. But that fragile harmony was shattered the day the new neighbors arrived. Their mansion loomed over the humble homes like a predator among prey, its sharp edges and gleaming surfaces radiating an almost sinister brilliance. The light from its windows seemed to pierce through the night, casting unnaturally cold, shifting shadows that danced like restless spirits on the ground. It exuded an aura of dominance, as though it were alive, watching and waiting. The wealthy family, led by a striking woman named Madame Iyanga, seemed to bring with them an air of effortless prosperity. Their children, Muna and Tay, flaunted toys so advanced they seemed alive, toys that glowed faintly even in the daylight, as if they carried a pulse of their own. Kara and Ben couldn't help but watch, their eyes wide with wonder and yearning. The toys moved with an uncanny grace, lights flickering in patterns that seemed to speak directly to their imaginations. One toy, a sleek mechanical animal, mimicked their every movement, while another whispered their names in soft, melodic tones. It was as though the toys had unlocked a secret, beckoning them into a world where anything seemed possible. Despite Sarah's stern reminders to be content, she saw the flicker of envy take root in their hearts. "We have all we need," she said, her voice firm. But the toys seemed to have a voice of their own, one that called to the children in whispers only they could hear. One evening, Madame Iyanga appeared at their door, her smile dazzling and her arms filled with one of those mesmerizing toys. "A gift for your little ones," she insisted, brushing off Sarah's protests. "I saw them looking at it. Muna and Tay already have many, so consider this sharing among neighbors." Kara and Ben appeared behind Sarah, eyes wide before she could even speak. "Oh, can we keep it, Mama? I promise we'll be so good." Before Sarah could object further, the toy was in her home, its smooth surface reflecting the dim light like a predator's eye. That night, Sarah was jolted awake by a faint, melodic noise that seemed to seep through the walls. It was a soft hum, almost like a lullaby, but laced with an eerie, otherworldly quality. Her heart raced as she rose from her bed, the air in the house unnaturally cold. She followed the sound to the living room, her bare feet brushing against the wooden floor that seemed to groan under her weight. There, in the pale light of the moon streaming through the window, she saw Kara and Ben. They stood motionless, their bodies rigid and their eyes wide open but unseeing. Their faces were eerily blank, devoid of life as their hands stretched forward, reaching for the glowing toy. The toy sat in the center of the room, its hum growing louder, its light pulsating like a living heart. The glow bathed the children in a sickly, flickering light that seemed to bend and twist the shadows around them. "Kara, Ben!" Sarah's voice cracked as she rushed to them, her hands trembling. She grabbed their shoulders and shook them, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. "Wake up! Please, wake up!" Kara's lips moved faintly, whispering something unintelligible, her voice mingling with the toy's hum. Ben's fingers twitched as if trying to grasp something invisible. For a terrifying moment, Sarah felt as though the children were slipping away, their small frames enveloped in the toy's unnatural glow. Finally, with a sharp gasp, They blinked and staggered back, their breaths ragged and shallow. "Mama!" Kara's voice was weak, confused, as if waking from a nightmare she couldn't fully remember. Sarah pulled them close, clutching them tightly as her tears fell. She glanced back at the toy, now silent, its glow dimming but still pulsing faintly like a sinister promise. Her grip on her children tightened, her heart heavy with the certainty that this was no ordinary object, but something far darker and more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The changes began subtly, the first sign appearing the very next morning. Sarah was startled to find Ben's worn-out shoes, once frayed and faded, looking as though they were brand new. The leather gleamed, and the stitching seemed impossibly perfect, as if crafted by unseen hands. A thrill of elation surged through her as Ben ran into the room, delightedly exclaiming how he no longer felt the sharp pinch of old soles. The joy was contagious, and for a moment, Sarah allowed herself to hope that their fortunes were changing. The following day brought another miracle. Kara's tattered dress, which had been patched and repatched so many times it hardly resembled its original form, transformed before Sarah's eyes. The fabric shimmered like liquid silk, its deep color glowing under the morning sunlight. Kara spun in delight, the dress rustling like whispers of wind. "It's beautiful, Mama," she cried, her eyes alight with happiness. At first, these changes filled the family with hope and relief, as if the weight of their struggles had begun to lift. Sarah felt a cautious sense of gratitude, though a nagging unease lingered at the edges of her thoughts. She noticed the way Ben would stare at his shoes, almost obsessively, and the way Kara would touch her dress, her fingers trailing over the fabric as if afraid it would vanish. Then the wishes became more apparent. Ben's offhand remark about wanting a new jacket was fulfilled the next morning when a fine coat appeared hanging neatly in their closet. Kara muttered about needing new paints for her artwork, and by evening, a pristine set of brushes and vibrant colors had replaced her old supplies. Each wish seemed to manifest without warning, the objects appearing as though conjured by unseen hands. But as the gifts grew, the children grew restless, their laughter replaced by sharp demands for more. "Why don't we have a bigger house?" Kara snapped one evening, her drawings no longer depicting happy scenes of their family, but rather sprawling mansions and lavish rooms. Ben's once bright eyes now carried a ravenous gleam, and his cheerful voice became sharp and impatient. "Why can't we have what they have?" he muttered, glaring out the window at their neighbors. Kara's fingers, once delicate, grew unnaturally long, her nails sharp and gleaming like polished glass. Ben's skin seemed to pale, a translucent sheen revealing veins that pulsed faintly with a sickly green light. Their shadows grew darker, sharper, almost alive, twisting unnaturally when they moved. Sarah's unease turned to dread as she watched these transformations unfold. The warmth and innocence of her children seemed to drain away, replaced by cold, calculating expressions. One night she caught Kara staring at her reflection in the mirror, her darkened eyes unblinking. "Mama, don't you want more?" Kara whispered, her voice carrying a chilling edge. Sarah's heart clenched, her unease now a storm of fear. The changes were no longer just physical. Her children's very essence seemed to be slipping away, replaced by something foreign and terrifying. She felt the walls of their home, once filled with love and warmth, close in around her like a trap. Around the neighborhood, other children with similar toys displayed the same transformation. One family, once known for their joyful gatherings, now rarely spoke, their laughter replaced by silent gazes fixed on glowing toys. Another household saw their eldest daughter, who used to draw vibrant murals on their walls, obsessively scribble dark symbols in the shadows of her room. One boy, whose mother Sarah often exchanged vegetables with at the market, sat alone in the street, his toy whispering in his ear as his once lively smile faded into a hollow expression. As Sarah observed the neighborhood children, she noticed alarming changes. Their once bright smiles had been replaced by cold, calculating expressions, their chatter centered around the latest desires rather than shared joy, just like her children. Suspicion clawed at Sarah's mind, and with unease growing in her chest, she ran into Mama Iyanga at the market. Mama Iyanga, she said with weary cautiousness in her voice, your gift is too generous. These children, it is all they play with now, ignoring their chores. You have my thanks, but I must return it to you. But Madame Iyanga laughed softly. It's yours now, she said, her words laced with something darker, her gaze lingering, as if she relished Sarah's struggle. When Sarah attempted to take the toy away, Kara and Ben screamed as if in agony. Their tiny bodies convulsed and strange shadowy shapes flickered around them, entities with hollow eyes and clawed hands. Sarah's fear deepened when later that week, while cleaning a client's house, she discovered an old newspaper article detailing Madame Iyanga's rapid rise to wealth, filled with cryptic references to tragedy and misfortune following in her wake. One account spoke of a family who had gone bankrupt shortly after accepting gifts from Iyanga, their once thriving farm left barren and cursed. Another chilling report described a mother whose children vanished under mysterious circumstances, leaving behind a single glowing toy in their empty home. As Sarah read, her hands trembled, the pieces of a sinister puzzle falling into place. As Sarah's unease deepened, she sought out other parents, hoping to share her growing concerns. But to her dismay, they dismissed her worries with wide smiles and euphoric expressions. You're overthinking it, one mother said, her eyes glittering unnaturally. These toys have been such a blessing. My daughter's never been happier. Another parent chimed in, praising how their son had suddenly excelled in school, attributing it to the toy's mysterious abilities. Their words left Sarah reeling. How could they not see the strange, hollow look in their children's eyes? How could they ignore the eerie, mechanical quality of their movements? Yet the parents seemed so certain, so at peace. Doubt crept into Sarah's mind. Perhaps she was overreacting. After all, hadn't Ben's shoes been repaired and Kara's dress transformed? Weren't her children benefiting, just like the others? That night, unable to sleep, Sarah wandered the neighborhood, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. Following the faint whispers carried on the night wind, she stumbled upon an unsettling scene. A glowing toy nestled in the hands of another child began to pulse with an unnatural light. Sarah watched in horror as the light snaked out, almost alive, and drifted toward a nearby homeless family huddled under a street lamp. The family shuddered as if struck by an invisible force, their faces contorting in pain as their meager belongings crumbled to dust. The child holding the toy giggled, oblivious, as a sparkling new coat appeared on their shoulders. Sarah staggered back, her heart pounding as she realized the horrifying truth. Each wish came at the cost of another's suffering. She rushed home immediately to her children, but it was too late. Kara stood in the living room, clutching the glowing toy, her face streaked with tears, but her eyes resolute. I just wanted him to have it better, she whispered, as the toy pulsed violently. In that instant, Ben let out a chilling scream, his small body collapsing to the floor as shadowy tendrils wrapped around him, sapping his strength. The room seemed to darken as the spirit's laughter echoed through the walls. The air grew heavy, and Sarah's heart pounded as she fell to her knees beside her son. Kara, what did you do? She cried, tears streaming down her face. I wished for him to never feel hungry again, Kara sobbed, her voice cracking. But instead of relief, Ben writhed, his body contorting as the spirits drained his vitality, leaving behind a fragile shell. The toy's glow grew brighter, feeding on the chaos. Sarah had no choice. She grabbed the toy and wrapped it in cloth, muffling its malevolent hum. Stay with him, she ordered Kara, her voice trembling but firm. Without another word, she bolted out of the house and stormed toward Madame Iyanga's mansion, her desperation giving her strength. She pounded at the mansion's gates, screaming Madame Iyanga's name into the chilling night air. There was no time for anything but answers, and she would not leave without the truth. Madame Iyanga's body shook. For the first time since they had met, Sarah saw fear in her eyes. Madame Iyanga broke down as she revealed her family's grim reality. They were prisoners of an ancient curse, one born out of desperation. Years ago, Madame Iyanga's husband, a once humble craftsman, had sought the help of a mysterious shaman to save their family from ruin after a devastating drought. The shaman offered them unimaginable wealth, but it came with a price. The toys, imbued with dark magic, would feed on the joy and innocence of their children, sustaining the family's prosperity. "We thought we could outsmart it," Madame Iyanga whispered, her voice trembling. But the curse was cunning. Each wish granted came at a cost, transferring hardship to another unsuspecting family. "Our wealth grew, but our children," her voice broke, and her gaze turned to her own children, Muna and Tay, who stood in the shadows, their eyes hollow and their smiles mechanical, their spirits consumed to sustain the family's fortune. "We've become monsters," she admitted, her tone heavy with regret. "And to escape, we must corrupt others." "It is a cycle," Madame Iyanga whispered, her voice trembling. "One family must always bear the burden, but there is a limit to the spirit's patience. Once the seventh day of wishes ends, the children are no longer yours. The spirits will claim them fully, their innocence and joy devoured forever. You have until midnight to break this curse," she said, her voice heavy with regret and urgency. "The cycle can only be broken if you willingly reject the desires that bound you to it, but the spirits will not let go easily." Sarah's stomach churned as she grappled with the bitter truth. Her own yearning for ease and abundance had blinded her to the creeping danger. She remembered the moment she accepted the toy, how she had reasoned that a small indulgence couldn't hurt. "Perhaps the children deserve a bit of luxury for once," she had told herself, pushing aside the unease that prickled her skin. Now that justification echoed in her mind like a warning ignored. Worse, she saw a vision of her children's future. Kara, cold and lifeless, adorned in riches. Ben, a shadow of himself, his joy devoured. With only hours left until the seventh day, Sarah rushed home to her children, her heart pounding with dread. As she stepped inside, she froze in horror. Kara's eyes had turned an unnatural shade of black, swirling with shadows that seemed to ripple like liquid. Ben's fingers had elongated into claw-like shapes, his skin pale and translucent, revealing veins pulsing with an eerie glow. The air around them felt thick, suffocating, as if the room itself were alive with the spirit's malice. "Kara, Ben, please," Sarah cried, dropping to her knees as tears streamed down her face. She reached out, but Kara recoiled, her voice distorted as she hissed, "We need it, Mama. We need more." Sarah's hands trembled, but she steeled herself. She cried out the memories, days when they found joy in simplicity, playing in the fields, eating mangoes under the blazing sun, laughing until their bellies hurt. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on, painting vivid pictures of a life untainted by greed. "Remember who you are," she pleaded, her voice breaking. "Remember us." The children's bodies writhed as the spirits clung to them, their twisted forms flickering between innocence and corruption. Shadows curled around Sarah, whispering temptations in languages she didn't understand, but she ignored them, pulling her children into a fierce embrace. "You are mine," she whispered, her voice trembling but resolute, "and I will never let you go." The darkness began to peel away, thin wisps of shadow unraveling from their bodies. Kara let out a guttural cry, her blackened eyes returning to their warm brown, while Ben collapsed into Sarah's arms, his claws shrinking back into small, trembling fingers. Sarah held them tighter, whispering words of love and gratitude until the last vestiges of the spirits dissolved into the air, leaving only silence. Sarah remembered from her grandmother's teachings, a dangerous vessel must be destroyed completely, or evil will forever have a home. And so, under the moonlit sky, they performed a ritual of gratitude to burn the toy in a fire laced with herbs. She led Kara and Ben in chanting a melodic prayer, its words echoing in the still night. "Spirits of the ancestors, cleanse us, guide us, and guard our souls." The flames flickered and danced in response, their colors shifting from orange to a vivid blue. Sarah scattered crushed kola nuts into the fire, a symbolic offering of humility and repentance. while Kara and Ben placed cowrie shells around the circle, invoking protection from malevolent forces. As the toy melted away, the cries of the spirits grew louder, then faded into an eerie silence. The next morning, the mansion stood empty, its family gone. The parents of the freed children woke to the horrifying memories of the night before. Their children's distorted faces, inhuman movements, and shadowy tendrils reaching for their hearts. Many wept quietly, holding their children close, ashamed of the greed that had blinded them to the danger. Fathers who had proudly displayed their children's newfound skills now felt a heavy guilt for the cost at which those talents had come. Mothers, who had encouraged their children's fascination with the toys, burned the last remnants of the cursed objects in their yards, their faces streaked with tears. In hushed voices, the families gathered, sharing stories of their narrow escape from the spirits' clutches. Gratitude replaced the envy that had once ruled their lives. Together, they vowed to rebuild their sense of community and find joy in the simpler, meaningful moments of life. Sarah and her children, too, embraced their humble life with renewed appreciation, their bond stronger than ever. And as the village returned to its rhythm, the families noticed a change in their children, a newfound warmth in their smiles, a return of laughter that echoed through the streets. The market was filled once more with chatter and shared meals, and the community thrived, bound by the hard-earned lesson they had all learned together. Yet amidst this newfound harmony, they did not forget the mansion or the wealthy family's disappearance. It remained a silent monument to the darkness they had overcome, a reminder that gratitude and contentment are shields against the most insidious of temptations. But in the whispering forest, faint echoes of the spirits' laughter lingered, their voices intertwining with the rustling leaves, as if weaving a dark promise. The air grew colder near the trees, a lingering reminder that while the family had escaped, the spirits remained, ever watchful, seeking the next soul to tempt with hollow desires. Some say a mother's love can overcome any darkness, but for Sarah, that love was tested against something ancient and hungry, something that knew exactly how to use a mother's desperation against her. Tonight, as you tuck your little ones into bed, look closely at their toys, listen carefully to their wishes, and ask yourself, what price would you pay to give them everything they want? We've all laid awake at night, hearts heavy with guilt because we couldn't give our loved ones what they wanted. What whispers have tempted you in those quiet moments of loving desperation? Share your story below. This is a safe space for those who understand that sometimes love comes with a price. And if you liked this story, please don't forget to like and subscribe for more folk tales from African mythology.